to decide if the word viable is understood.
Yeah, right.
Do you have the date of the adoption?
It was enough.
All right, Bob's in now. I'm gonna open the meeting with a bit of what's that? Oh, yeah. All right, good. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna open the meeting with some sad news. I don't know how many people have heard, but Rabbi Barry Silver died today. Yeah. It was just horrible. I mean, it was in his late 60s, leaves a young son in college, and was just what? Two sons. He was just a fighter for all things good. I mean, he was can we stop with he was a mensch, and he was the only rabbi that ever served in the state legislature. And the last time we saw him was piped into this room right before their vote on the ag reserve, and he gave a spellbinder of a talk. David, unfortunately, didn't start the recording until too late, so we have only half of it on the YouTube channel. But then he went down, and he was the one that made that happen. That they didn't, he turned Greg Weiss's vote. He turned Mac Bernard's vote. He got Mindy to get involved, and they would have been digging up the ag reserve if not for him. So it's a real loss. And there are services on Sunday, I think midday. There'll be an announcement tomorrow, and I'm sure it'll be in the papers. So
I have it. I can forward it to you, Michael.
Okay, yeah. Or just put it in chat, and I'll read it later. The other piece, or the piece of business before we have Bill, which should only take a moment, it's March, so it's time for the annual elections. So I'm going to turn it over to Bob Avarak, our parliamentarian, and we'll run through that quickly. Bob?
Yeah, no, thank you, Michael. And I'm deeply, deeply saddened by the news that Barry has left us. What a giant, what an absolute giant that man was. Meant a lot to a lot of people here in Palm Beach County. Anyway, with that said, greetings to you actually from the home of my sister in Vero Beach, where I've been for the last few days and will be for another few days. And I am very pleased, even on this sad occasion. I'm very pleased to present for your vote, your ratification, hopefully by acclamation, the officers of the Democratic Club of Delray Beach for the next 2 years. And that will be no surprise to anybody. That includes our esteemed president and host tonight, Mike Cantwell, returning as president. Same for Charlene as our vice president. Our treasurer, David Kulik, is back working the numbers. Mary Fader is returning, and we wish Mary, of course, a very, very speedy recovery from her recent illness. And she'll be returning as secretary. And yours truly, Robert Avarak, will be returning as the parliamentarian. for the Democratic Club of Delray Beach. And with that, I would like to move for a vote of unanimous consent to elect this board of officers.
There can be nominations from the floor. If there are none, we'll move ahead.
Please.
Are there any? Thank you, Michael. That's appropriate. Are there any other nominations for any offices on the board? I will repeat. Are there any nominations for any other offices of the Delray Beach Democratic Club? And for the third time, are there any nominations from the floor? I will take a motion to close nominations for the offices of the Delray Beach Democratic Club. Will someone please move?
I
move.
Move. Looking for a second on that? Second. Okay, second heard. All in favor of closing nominations signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me. Any opposition to closing nominations? Hearing none, nominations are closed. We will now elect the slate as a single entity. I'll ask for a favor. All in favor of electing this slate as previously announced, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? Hearing none, by parliamentary rule, this is an election of this slate by unanimous consent. Congratulations to the officers for the next 2 years beginning tonight.
Right.
And that's the
Thank
close of
you.
business of the nominating committee.
Thank you, Bob. And I see now that Steve is on. Steve,
Yes,
I
I am home, Michael. I
you
am
are home.
finally.
So you can force your way out of the hospital.
Honestly, I think they're having a party now that I'm gone.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. When I got my wife out, they said she's so sweet. She's so sweet, and I said, yeah, well, I make up for it. So,
Believe me, they're not saying that about me.
yeah. So do you want to? I had a write up that I thought I was going to have to use because I didn't think you were going to be here to introduce Bill, but I'm happy to have you do it. Or we can both do it. I can read what I had, and you can say what you were going to say. It's up to you.
Listen, you're the boss. I will be happy to do the introduction and proud.
Okay. So then go. I mean, the one you go ahead. That's fine.
To all of you listening online and all of you in the room, I say hello and good evening. I'm wondering how many of you have ever used birth control. And I can't see a show of hands, but I imagine you're thinking to yourself, yeah, I used birth control. How many of you used it before you were married? Oh, yeah, I did. Well, the guy you have to thank is our guest speaker tonight. He is the person who had taken 5 cases to the United States Supreme Court in defense and won them all in defense of reproductive rights. In 1967, he made a speech at Boston University in which he committed the felony of showing birth control devices and handing them out to single people. It was a felony in Massachusetts and several other states. He took his case. He was arrested. He was handcuffed and put into jail, and took his case all the way to the United States Supreme Court. 5 years later, his case, Eisenstadt versus Baird, was settled, and birth control was made legal for single people, all people for that matter. All people were able to access birth control. His case was cited in Roe v. Wade and became part of the abortion and birth control movement. When I met him, he was still a convicted felon. I met him in 1970, and we've been friends ever since. I am here tonight not to introduce a guy who is a hero as far as the birth control and abortion movement is concerned. I'm here to introduce a guy who is my friend and an inspiration to me as an activist. And I hope that he will be tonight an inspiration to other Floridians as activists to defeat the restrictions that are being placed on reproductive rights here in our state. As I say, Bill and I have been friends since 1970. And we went back a couple of years ago, we went back to the jail where he stayed, which is now a hotel in Boston. And in the lobby is his picture. So yeah, you know, the man is I hope you're listening, Bill, but the man is a hero to me.
Yeah.
And I,
Steve, if I could interrupt for just 1 second.
yes, by all
when,
means.
when I looked at the Wikipedia, it was not a hotel when he stayed.
Oh, no, it's a Charles Street jail.
No, and the jail was, I'm speaking not only literally, but figuratively. They said that he had rats in his cell, bugs in his food, lice on the prison mattress, and was subjected to humiliating body searches. So
absolutely, and I'm sure he'll tell you more about that than I possibly could, as he usually does. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my friend and my hero, Bill Baird.
Well, thank you so very much, Steve. So good to see you out of the hospital.
Oh, yeah. I'm so happy, Bill, I'll tell you.
I'm very proud of knowing Steve. I mean, he's been a great champion and a great friend, but it's so great that he's part of a good organization like the Democratic Party. And I'm hoping just more and more people will get involved and see, whether it be Steve or me or a handful of people, that together we have awesome power within ourselves if we would believe. This is what my 61st year. I began in 63. And at 91, can you believe that? This cute fellow you're seeing now is me.
You're just a kid, Bill. You're just a kid.
I'm still talking, won't shut up, and sometimes even gets into trouble at 91 by saying things that people don't want to hear because it's too controversial. And I say, wait a second, we're fighting for the life of our democracy. We're fighting for the lives of women. And we better darn well stand up, even if it's offensive, because taking away our freedom is going to be far worse than worrying about hurting the feelings of others. So if I can begin, first of all, I'm honored and thrilled to be with you. And as you may know, tomorrow, March 22nd, is the anniversary of Baird versus Eisenstein. And it was a case that did not come easy. It took a lot of strength internally and a lot of support and a lot of help. But I want to just go back just a little bit so you'd have a better understanding. I grew up in the slums of Brooklyn way back in 1932. I was born in the Great Depression, but a couple of years later, when I was, how young was I? 9 years old. I heard my sister scream in the middle of the night in such pain. I told my mom, I said, Mom, Louise is in a lot of pain. Can't we get her to a doctor? We have kein She was German. She was a German immigrant. My father was a Scottish immigrant. We're having kein Geld. We have no money for a doctor. So we just let it go. The next night, she let out such a scream, neighbors came running. They thought maybe we were hurting her, the child. And all of a sudden, the neighbor rushed her because we didn't have a car, couldn't afford anything, drove her to the hospital, and she died. She had appendicitis, and the appendix broke, and we didn't even have a diagnosis. And I said, how outrageous. A beautiful, kind, loving person lost her life because my father, who was a severe alcoholic from Scotland, and my mother was from Germany, both got married, and one at 16 years old, the other at 19, teenage pregnancy. And the horrible thing is, it was a very difficult marriage, a lot of violence. And I said to myself, if I ever can get out of this poverty, I'm going to try to make the planet a little bit better. And bit by bit, I went through high school, went through college, Brooklyn College, got my Bachelor of Science degree, and went to the U.S. Army, They appointed me, believe it or not, to the intelligence corps. Big mistake. But
They
never,
have intelligence in the Army?
the fact they even took me in, good. I'll tell you, the first day in, or first weekend, I was pretty strong. I was a tough kid from the slums of Brooklyn. So he wanted to say, Baird, show us how to make certain moves. And the sergeant, what?
The drill sergeant.
Yeah, the drill sergeant says, just listen to what I'm saying, and try to make the moves that I'm making with the bayonet. So I made the moves, and he says, it's an honor to have you show this, but he says, it's also an honor to have your enemy's blood on my bayonet. I said, are you effing nuts? That's how I talked to him. I said, that's no honor to kill somebody, slice his jugular. It's something may have to be done, but it's not an honor. You can guess for the next 6 months, I did latrine duty. And it taught me a lesson that you don't talk back to a drill sergeant. And to make a long story short, I got married at the young age of 23 and got hired by a drug company that made birth control products. And the guy was a weird guy, very smart, never finished 8th grade in elementary school, but he came up with an idea. If you could take contraceptive foam, foam was just in a liquid form. And if you put it in the vagina, it would spread. Nonylphenoxypolyethanol is a spermicide that would kill the sperm. He said, that's crazy. He says, why not make it easier? Why not use Freon gas? Gas, when it's the body temperature of 97 degrees or 99 degrees, will make it expand and you get greater coverage of the spermicide. What a brilliant idea, I thought. So he said, you be our clinical director. And he ran ads, I got it here someplace. He ran ads in a newspaper that basically said, Bill Baird, clinical director, is coming to your area at such and such a hospital or such and such a place. So come to him, we'll give you free Emco foam. It's a way of promoting the foam, but also educating the public about birth control. And one of my accounts was Harlem Hospital. When I was there, bringing the research material to the doctors there, I heard a scream. And like any other human being, I ran into the hallway to see if I could help. And I saw this young Afro-American woman stagger in, covered with blood from the waist down. And I went to grab her because she was slumping to the ground. And I saw she had an 8-inch piece of wire coat hanger that was sticking out of her uterus. And I said, my God. And she died. And I was so outraged to find out she was several months pregnant, desperate, could not get birth control, could not get abortion. And so I went to the authorities, like Planned Parenthood. I said, Planned Parenthood, fight the abortion law. Oh, no, it's against the law to give out information. Well, what about birth control? Oh, no, you can't give birth control to single people. Their literature, and this is going to shock some of you. But one of the reasons I wanted to do this with you, Steve will tell you everything I'm saying, I'm verifying, because he's seen it before. That the literature from Planned Parenthood says that abortion takes the life of a child, and they would not give out birth control to an unmarried person unless you can prove you were getting married within 6 months. And did you hear what I said? Planned Parenthood, with all the millions of dollars, fancy office, 515 Madison Avenue, New York City, most expensive real estate in the world, turns around and says, no, Baird, we're not going to help you. We don't think that it's nonsense. It's not the thing to do. We're going to file a case called Griswold from Connecticut, and that case is going to change the law for married people. But why are you going to discriminate against unmarried people? Whether or not should not be having sex. Who are you? Who are you to tell anyone they could or could not have sex? So I decided on my own, I would try to figure out what to do. So at night, I would go into poor areas like Harlem and Bedford-Stuyvesant, notably to apartment houses for poor people. And I would give the guy $25 to clean up after I left. And so there were like 30, 40, 50 people would come. The second time I came back, which is 2 weeks later, give out birth control and talk to them, and they were very eager. He said, "You can't come back. My bishop called and said, you are the devil. If I give out birth control, I'm going to burn in hell if I allow you to do that." So I said, well, the heck with that. If I can't go there. By the way, my brother had an office. You may have heard of Dr. Robert Baird. He ran the Haven Clinic in Harlem. He's also a very famous guy. He sang the Jet football game, Star Spangled Banner, and he was very conservative, as I was very, very liberal. So you saw we didn't really meet on too many issues. But to make a long story short, I said, well, I'll figure out another way. And on the way home from work, crossing the Triborough Bridge, I saw that a United Parcel truck cut me off. I said, son of a gun. Then a flash went off. I said, wait a minute. Why don't I make a mobile clinic out of an old discarded truck, and I'll drive into poor areas? So I took an old truck, rebuilt it inside, made it look like it was a fireplace, fake fireplace windows, everything. So it looked like a house, like a Winnebago almost. And I drove it from area to area into poor areas. And I gave out birth control, free. But I did it at night on my time. And in 1965, all of a sudden I saw red lights flashing off the interior. I looked up, there were 2 police cars. Get out, Baird. You're under arrest for indecent exposure. What was I doing indecent? You're showing birth control to unmarried people, and that is a crime. The law 1142 says print, publish, or exhibit any means of birth control, you go to jail. They arrested me, put me in jail, and I began to fight that law. Percy Sutton, who at that time was the borough president, he said, Baird, I'll take your case. And we won. This is going to surprise you. I get a call the next day from Freehold, New Jersey. 2 women crying hysterically. We're on welfare. They're going to put me in jail. Oh, ma'am, I'm not a lawyer. I wish I could help you. She says, well, what happened was I got pregnant and I had 2 kids. I said, oh, well, that's nice you have your kids. And she says to me, but they're saying that they're going to jail me. I said, under what law? It's not illegal to have a baby. They said it was illegal to fornicate. And I knew fornication. So they said, okay, I'll come and I'll help you. And I drove my van. I called up Marcus Daly, who was the welfare director, who was behind all this. And he was going to correct the morals of women. So I went down there. I said, look, I'm coming down. He said, you come down here, you show any birth control, we're putting your tail in jail. It's 1966. The only one who would defend me was Floyd McKissick. I don't know if you know him. He was the head of CORE, Congress for Racial Equality. So lo and behold, I get there, police are there, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, 50 with shotguns, pistols, rifles. I had a can of foam. Those were my weapons and truth. So I spoke, they arrested me, convicted me, sentenced me to prison for 20 days. Wow. I said, this is nuts. Then Joe Sonnen, never finished elementary school, says, Baird, you can't work for me. We can't have this kind of, you're fired. I got 4 kids. What the heck am I going to do? So I took the mobile van and I started to do talk shows. Alan Burke is maybe too old for you to remember. Frank McGee, those guys from NBC. I did all these talk shows. All of a sudden, I'm swamped with phone calls. Would you please help me with an abortion? I said, it's illegal. Help me with an abortion. Help me with birth control. So I set up the my clinic in Hempstead, Long Island, which is a notably poor Black community. I went there. I'm sorry? I couldn't hear you. Hello?
Sorry, Bill.
Did I interrupt you or say something wrong?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
It was in 1964, so.
Okay, 1964, I set up the
Yeah.
clinic on 130 Main Street. By hand, we built, with friends' help, And a guy by the name of Joe, Giola, from Pioneer Line, he donated wood. We built a free clinic. And so I'm there, so I'm trying to get a job, and the job, believe it or not, I worked at Creedmoor Mental Hospital as a security guard. They gave me a club where if somebody escaped, it was a club and didn't drag the person back. That's not me. I would always try to talk to them, crazy or otherwise. So I was there for 2 years. Then finally, when I started to see what was going on with this whole thing with birth control, I get a call from a young man who was the editor of the BU News, Ray Mungo. Ray Mungo says, Baird, he says, I read about you. He says, you sound like a brave guy. He says, why don't you come here and fight our law? It's called Crimes Against Chastity. Let me read it. Chastity, morality, decency, and good order. It carries with it a 10-year prison term. If you publicly show a diaphragm, a pill, the IUD, or give out any one of these non-prescriptive items, like the phone, and if you do that, you could help us get the law changed. So why not go to Planned Parenthood? They're right there. They're a multi-million-dollar corporation. And he showed me, gave me a clipping, which I've got here, where they turned around and they were picketed by the students because they would not give out birth control. Planned Parenthood would not give out birth control to single people at Boston University or anywhere else they know. So I said, tell you what, I'll try to see if I can get some support. I don't have any money for a lawyer. Oh no, we got a lawyer. Now listen to this carefully. Who's the lawyer? This is a guardian of free speech, the ACLU. So I gave my speech. Now think about this. I'm not a lawyer. I show up at Boston April the 6th, 1967. Not a couple of hundred, as they told me. Over 2,500, largest audience ever, because they knew I was going to get busted. So how do you test the law? The first thing I did, look what I'm showing you. Time magazine. Now, wait a second. This clearly is against the law. April the 6th, the day of my arrest, is dated in the magazine, which is one reason I picked it, 1967. It's a photograph of the pill.
Hold it up.
Remember, you cannot show,
Yeah.
you cannot show any means of birth control, okay? So I'm showing the pill, the real pill I pasted on, and look what else. St. Joseph's aspirin. It looked like the pill. So I said to the cops, there were dozens of policemen there. I said, will you arrest me for showing the real pill, Time Magazine's photographs of the pill, or a fake pill? They looked at me and they laughed. I said, Baird, don't waste our time. So I said, what's the next thing I can do? Mind you, I made that journey from Long Island to Boston. What's the next thing? Who's your biggest enemy? Catholic Boston, as they called it. So I picked up with me the Bible. Genesis 38, 9 through 11. Check me out. It says, God told Onan to have intercourse with his dead brother's wife. The idea was that when the dead brother's wife had the child, it would become partly inherited into the inheritance of the wife. So I read it. God said, have intercourse, but he spilled his seed on the ground. Listen to what I said. Spilled his seed on the ground. What does spilling your seed on the ground mean? Spilling your sperm on the ground, in layman's term, is called withdrawal. So I say, wait a second. Withdrawal is a means of birth control. Therefore, the Bible printed a means of birth control, therefore, is against the law. You got to arrest every priest. I thought this was brilliant. They laughed. I said, well, you may laugh, but somehow I'm going to get this law into the courtroom. Next thing, what do? I showed, John, do you have the board? Oh, I have the board. I have it here. I don't know how well you can see this,
I'll put it up.
but this is what I went to jail for. The other
Oh,
way.
it's gonna cover you. Oh, the birth control
Yeah.
part? Okay.
Yeah. Can you see this?
Yeah.
These are various means of birth control, okay? From the foam, the Catholic Church's rhythm method, the pill, the
We gotta put
IUD,
it over a little bit.
the IUD, okay. So anyhow, I just,
Yeah,
that's
let
the
me
same,
just give them a good shot of that, so.
Yeah.
There we go.
that's the same board I showed. Now, then I want to reverse the other side, or you took it away.
Oh,
The other
that's
side, yeah,
Sure.
the other side shows methods of abortion that I got from patients. You can see there's a douching bag, a baster. Okay, honey, it's gonna, I can't,
Sorry.
okay. What would they use?
Everybody, that's Phil's wife, Joni. Hi, Joni.
Hi.
A douching bag, you fill it with Lysol, with bleach, soap suds. How the heck could that make an abortion? Soap suds? What's in soap? Lye. Fats. Your body absorbed the fat from the soap and you die from what is called a fat embolism. You saw a baster. How could a baster filling with salt water, how's that going to kill you? People take a baster. On the top was a little bulb. You squeeze it hard. You don't force just the water in the soapy solution, but you also force air. Force air into a major blood vessel, you die of what? An air embolism. Remember when you go to a doctor, they give you an injection, they always depress the plunger, so the liquid squirts on the top. So when I showed all of that, and then I reached into my pocket and I took out a can of foam, Emco foam. I'm clinical director, so if anybody knows about it, and it's printed in the newspapers, clinical director for Emco foam. They wrote the ad, they gave me the title. So they turned around and I said, anyone wants this foam? Okay, thanks, honey. She always telling me to keep my head up. Okay. So, she's right. Well, listen, give me 91, the head gets heavy. So anyway, I took the
phone.
foam.
Sorry.
No, honey, I told you, I was up too late last night. All right. So I took the phone and I arranged with a 19-year-old. Why 19-year-old? In those days, I was trying to get teenagers to be recognized as people who could vote. And I wanted a 19-year-old to have the right, 18-year-olds to have the right to vote. They didn't at that time. So I gave this young girl, do you remember her name, Joni? Because she's in the film. Ellen Katz.
No, Sue Cat.
Sue Katz, very smart kid. And she's now French. They did a movie about my life. It's
Yours
called
and Freedom.
Yours and
Bear.
Yours and Freedom, Bill Baird. That was
It'll
3
be
years.
at Saratoga,
It's
Sarasota. I always get.
going to be in Sarasota,
New
New York,
York. Film Festival.
but it was shown already in New York, and it's got pretty good reviews. It's going to come out for mass production in a few weeks from now. It's done by a prize-winning journalist, Rebecca Camisa. Honey, I love you so. Everyone should have a Joni in their life because without her, dead, I am lost. I'm a babbling idiot. But with her, I can put together 2 sentences sometimes. So at any rate, I give it to her. The moment I gave it to her, the police says, "You're under arrest, Baird." And they put the handcuffs on me. I said, "Hold it." And they stopped. I got handcuffed. I said, "Stop." I said, "I want you to see," because there were a dozen TV cameras. I held up a sales receipt. Sales receipt says, "There's department store." Listen to the word, department store, not a drugstore. Department store, $3 for the phone, 9-cent sales tax. I said, how can you legally collect a sales tax from an illegal sale? Because you cannot buy a contraceptive from any other place than a drugstore. I bought it from a department store. There's also Raymond's department store, a whole bunch of them. And then I held up the rhythm method, manufactured by the Catholic Church, bought from the Catholic Church. Law said you cannot print, publish, exhibit any means of birth control. I said, this is brilliant to myself. So arrest me. I'll get into a court, hopefully, and it's going to be declared unconstitutional. All of a sudden, my subconscious brain kicks in and says, "Hey, Baird, where's your lawyer?" They told me the ACLU would jump up and say would defend you. I said, where's the ACLU? No answer. Made me feel a little uneasy. I asked a second time. No answer. You want to know panic? Facing 10 years in jail? The
Yeah.
third time, James Hamilton says, I am director of the ACLU. We will take your case. I said, whew, to myself. So they handcuffed me, threw me in jail. Then I went on trial. Oh, about to go on trial. And what do you think happened? I got a phone call from the ACLU 4 days later. And what do you think? This is the first time you're hearing this. But I thought, and you can go with Steve. He'll verify this. What do you think happened? ACLU called me and said, Baird, we met with Planned Parenthood. And they told us there's nothing to be gained by your case, nothing.
Right.
And we're not going to represent you. Hold it, buddy. I'm from New York. You're in Boston. I'm consultant to the state of New York for reproductive health care. They appointed me by Percy Sutton. How the hell are you going to tell me you're going to let me now, I got 4 kids, face a 10-year jail term? You said you're going to take me as a client. It's ironclad. I can tell you. No, the law is not unconstitutional the way you tested it. Wow. Wow. You want to know what it's like to turn green publicly? Well, what do you think happened? I didn't know what to do. I didn't know anybody. I live in New York, Long Island, Valley Stream, Long Island.
Huh.
I suddenly get a phone call from a brilliant lawyer, a well-known criminal lawyer for the mafia. What, honey?
Joe Valero.
Yeah, well, I knew that. Joe, well, you'll find when you get to be 91, names get a little bit hazy.
I'm
Sometimes.
Steve.
Huh?
I'm Steve.
Okay, thank you. So Joe Valero says, look, you don't know me, but you got a pair of, you know what? I love courage in people. I will take your case. Free. Oh, I love that word, free. We took the case. And this is the most painful part. And I've barely told this story, but you're going to be shocked when I'm about to tell you. I'm heading into court, and Joe does a brilliant job. He said, Joe, stop. I'm sitting up here in front of the judges. Stop. You're winning. For Christ's sakes, Baird, that's what I do. I'm a lawyer. I said, Joe, how do I get heard by the Supreme Court if you win? I got to lose. You got to take, I used to box. You got to take a dive. Got to take a dive. Oh, okay. Took a dive. Lost the case. But anyhow, we appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. And he was Joe, my friend, who I love, but I lost him because we got headed to the U.S. Supreme Court. And that's hard to do. And while I'm doing that, I asked Planned Parenthood for help. Planned Parenthood puts in writing in their newsletter, listen to this carefully, because it's in the movies that was made. There's nothing to be gained by the Baird case. Nothing to be gained by his case. Why the hell would they stab me in the back facing a 10-year jail term? Why would they do that? Jealousy? Thinking I want them. I was never a money guy. Otherwise, I would have had money. I wasn't doing this for money. I was doing it because I wanted to save the lives of women. I wanted to protect my dead sister and people like her from having to die because they couldn't get medical care, as women who had abortions could not get medical care. Many of them couldn't afford a doctor, would take douchey bags and fill it with Lysol or bleach. So that's why I did that. So to make a long story short, I got a phone call from not solicited, from United States Senator Joseph, not time, Gruning,
Oh, really?
from Alaska. It's a cold place. That's all I know about Alaska. Although he left on. I go there. He calls me up. He says,
Idaho.
do me a favor. He says, you can't let Joe argue your case. What do you mean I can't let him argue my case? He's the only guy I had that, you know what, if take me before the court free and I think I'm gonna win. He says, no, you don't understand. I have another lawyer. What do you mean you have another lawyer? I have a lawyer. He says, Joe Tidings. Who the hell ever heard of him? I heard of him in Boston. No one ever heard of him. You know who I got who wants to do your case? United States Senator Joseph Tidings. He'll take, I have to make this decision. I call my allies. I call the women's groups. They tell me, we won't file a brief to support you. You're a man. We don't want to know you. I said, holy smokes. So I said, he says to me, if you take Tidings, he'll argue your case free, but he plays golf with them. He goes to lunch with them. They're friends. Now, nobody's dummy. I grew up in a slum. I know what it means to have a friend. Because when you're very poor, you don't have many friends. Term you don't know called, I don't think you know, called junking. 8 years old, I used to go from garbage can to garbage can, take out newspapers and sell them to a junkyard, 75 cents for 100 pounds, because my father would disappear on his drunken binges. And that was a way that we helped survive because we didn't have money for food. So I listened to my inner core. My inner core said, I think I should listen and go with Joe, with this U.S. Senator. So I did. And Joe said, you can't do that to me. I'm your friend. And he sued me. And I knew he would, but I knew I would win. It's my freedom, because if I lose, I go back to jail. So I went before the U.S. Supreme Court, and they pulled the biggest argument that they knew. You know what they pulled? They said, Your Honor, this is the state of Massachusetts. You cannot take Baird's case because he is not a resident. He is not a single, so he can't challenge the law. And the Chief Justice Breger said, what are you talking about? And of course he can. He's going back to jail if we vote against him. Who could have more standing than somebody who's going to lose his freedom? So that's the backstory of how this very important case was heard before the United States Supreme Court. March 22nd, tomorrow, I was ordered, 1972, to appear before the U.S. Supreme Court. You want to know what it's like to have 4 kids and to know that you could go be up to 10 years in jail for defying the law? Nobody backed you. The women's groups said get lost. The ACLU dropped the case. You have no value. Planned Parenthood says nothing to be gained by your case. What would you do if you were me? I could flee back to New York. I was consultant appointed by the Senate as consultant to the Senate of New York State for birth control and abortion care. So you know what I did? I said, I'm going to go up there. And I went to the court and I walked up those steps with a very unsteady step. I remember how shaky I felt inside because I didn't want to face what going back into that cell, 4 foot by 8. People were raped almost every night. You could hear their screams, the beatings, rats in my cell. I am still scarred, even at the age of 91. Still, I cannot shake it. I have got a great wife who loves me deeply for some reason and gives me the strength to take each day. And when I stood up before them, the judge said, in a 6-1 decision, listen to these words, if the right of privacy means anything, the right of the individual to be free, to decide whether to bear or beget a child. The right of privacy means anything. The right of the individual, married or single, to make this decision. Yay, I said. Well, it changed the laws all over the United States. You think any of my buddies helped? My allies said, gee, Baird, you did a lot. We'll try to help you. Nothing. A couple of years later, I get a call from Massachusetts again, from a teenager. First, it was a 12-year-old who was raped by her father. Nobody would help him. And then when I got a call from this teenager saying, I'm pregnant, but my father and my mother will not, they said they're going to punish me, make me go through the pregnancy. So this way, I will never have sex again until I'm married. So isn't that nuts? So in a case called Baird versus Pilati, I sued. And who do you think was my representative? If anybody knows this movement, Roy Lucas was known as a brilliant lawyer. He was the one who laid the foundation for Roe versus Wade, the right of privacy. Brilliant guy. And he kind of liked me. So he says, I'll take your case. And he took my case. I'm heading to the US Supreme Court, and you have to please take this in the right light. I am probably one of the most nonviolent, gentle people, but sometimes if I'm tested too much, I won't take any more crap. I'm at my clinic and I hear a scream. This is in Boston. I'm at my clinic, I hear a scream. And I hear footsteps running down the hallway. After my nurse had screamed. My nurse had screamed. I thought she was hit. So this guy comes in, a tall guy, kicks open the door, and he had his fist up in the air. I thought it was a knife or a gun. So I blocked it when he kicked in. I blocked it in a short right. He went out like a light, grabbed him by the back of the neck, dragged him along the floor, semi-conscious. We were on the second floor, 673 Boston Street, Boston. Slide him down the marble steps. I said, take your right to life butt out of here. I'll never come back. I run back upstairs. I said, how you doing, Marilyn? How you doing? Are you okay? She says, don't you know what you did? Yeah, I knocked out a right to life. You won't come back. Don't worry. No, you didn't. There was a federal marshal. You're being sued by Planned Parenthood, who claims that your lawyer is no good, Roy Lucas. One of the top lawyers, they wrote a big obituary when he died by the New York Times. So I said, holy smokes. So make a long story short, I really didn't know what to do. I called up Joe Valeri, says, come back. He came back. I went back to his office, and there was a guy who I knocked out with a dozen policemen. He says, we got you now. And he says, look what he did to my shirt. He ripped my shirt. Joe takes out of his wallet $100, $200, $300. Says, here, will that buy you a new shirt? He took the money. They left. What he did, in effect, was give him the money to say, get lost. And he did. That's the background story of such an important news. So they made a movie on it, I told you. And I hope you see it. But the reason I'm telling you that detail is that it's very scary. I'm no brilliant guy. I'm no tough guy, but I am stubborn. That I can tell you. And when I tell you that, how do I say it in a way that you don't misread me? You're my brother. You're my sister. We love each other. We care about each other. Why is it so hard to understand that my whole life of 91, if I died tonight, I have fought my whole life with one goal. Can't we care for each other? Can't we give a damn about each other? Aren't there things we can do? Like now, we're in such danger with losing our freedom. Please, when you go to vote, please vote. Take some friends with you in the car. Call them. Take as many people as you can. Go out of your way. Because if we lose our democracy, you're going to see so much damage done to our democracy if this guy gets in. I caution you, please do that. Number two, try to get yourself in a way that you encourage people to stand up to bullies. Now, this is the offensive part for some people. Who's your enemy? I'm the only one, Bill Baird, the only one with enough guts to come with me where I face death every single week. When I went to the Right to Life convention, you hear that? I went to their convention. First day I went there by myself, because I didn't know Johnny then. First time there, they called the police. They said, an anti-life person is here, get him out of here. Cops grabbed me by the arm, get out of here. I said, really? I called his boss, the chief of police. I said, I'm going to file a suit because it says open to the public. I'm the public. I didn't make any noise. I just wanted to see how they were doing things. There was a reason for that. I thought if they saw one lone warrior would go there, and I saw most of the 2,000 people, most of them were women. It wasn't men fighting them, as stupidly as our side thinks. It was women. Phyllis Schlafly was single-handedly destroyed the ERA, a woman. They have this misguided idea that it's only men who are fighting. Men are fighting, and wrong. But lots of women who are conservative have been enemies of other women, but we don't want to acknowledge that. So they turn around as years go by. I've got here the New York Times. They quoted Betty Friedan. Betty Friedan told the New York Times, "Oh, Baird is a CIA agent."
Yeah.
My beloved wife, who I'd march into hell for her, goes to Betty Friedan's book signing in New York City at Barnes and Noble. And I know she was going to do this. All of a sudden, at the end of this question and answers, she jumps up and says, "Betty," and the woman says, "Yes." She says, "My husband is Bill Baird. You've repeatedly called him a CIA agent. I know he's not his wife. He's not a CIA agent. All he is somebody who's devoted his life to fighting for women's rights. I want you to apologize to him." She's a very stubborn woman, by the way. I can tell you that firsthand. Betty jumps up and says, "Don't you dare insult me. Don't you know your husband is responsible for trying to, listen to these words, destroy the women's movement? For years, I've been trying to build a women's movement. For years, I got dozens of clippings. So I did everything I could to strengthen the strength of women, that they would organize. But don't discriminate. Don't say you want freedom while you discriminate. Can't have it that way. And there's not every woman is your ally. And please understand this, not every man is your enemy. How many men do you know would go to jail 8 times in 5 different states? One of the clippings I got in, this would shock you, but I have to bring it to show it. Look at this headline, Newsday, big newspaper, page 1. Abortion advocates jailed. An infant was in the audience. Listen to how desperate the police are to stop you. They want to invalidate you by saying because a baby was in the audience and saw that board that I showed you with the birth control diaphragm and the pill, would give a baby, 14-month-old, sexual ideas. The mother was jailed also. Both the mother and I were jailed. We faced prison term, had to go on trial. Judge said, "This is nuts." He says, "I'm going to discharge this case." You know what he did? Cops, they went from door to door, knocking on the door, and they found 2 14-year-olds who were in the audience. "Okay, we got a 14-year-old. He gave the speech. They were in the audience. They'll testify to that. We want him jailed." The judge said, "Are you nuts? I'm dismissing your charges against Baird, and you must leave him alone." And they left me alone. I sued them, and see if I can you read this? Bill Baird,
Yeah, hold
for
on.
Suffolk County,
Hold it up.
$8,000. You know what I did? I took that money and I set up the Suffolk County Police Abortion Fund. I used their money to pay for abortions. Just to teach them a lesson. I don't live in Suffolk County anymore, so I can be very brave and say that. So anyway, things you can do. First of all, please be involved, how important your freedom is. Please, you'll never know the agony you feel until an unwanted pregnancy hits you, okay? Help people. You know what may sound crazy? I never said this before. My wife will probably jump. You know what you can do? Adopt a local clinic. Go to a local clinic. You know what I used to do at clinics and including my own? When I knew I was going to get picketed, I picketed my own clinic. And so I called the police. I said, "There's going to be a riot." "Well, how do you know?" "Well, I'm picketing my own clinic, showing support for the patients coming in. I want them moved across the street when they come here." "All right," I said, "we'll do that." And that's what they did. And they did that at other clinics. So my strategy was, if you could go to a clinic, tell them your plan and get some neighbors and friends to join you. So if they open up at 9 o'clock in the morning, you get there at 8 o'clock and you picket there for an hour or two. So while the patients are inside getting their medical care, you are preventing them from being harassed by your being in front. Takes guts, yeah. Maybe name calling, yep. But you see, I'm the kind of guy that I don't care what you do to me. I've been punched, I've been kicked, I've been spat upon, jailed 8 times. But you know what? What do you want to do with your life? Truly. Some of you maybe not as old as me. So all I can say in summation is my whole goal is to show you that one guy with an incredible wife as a partner can move mountains.
Yeah.
And I plead with you, just consider if it were your wife, your daughter, who was faced with unwanted pregnancy, you would move every mountain that you could to help them. Okay, I'll take any questions or challenges or.
You didn't mention your clinic getting bombed in Hempstead. I grew up in Rockville Center. And I remember when that happened in
Guy
67.
came in to kill me. Yeah.
Yeah.
A guy came in, Peter Birkin. He was seen a week before picketing me. And he said, I'm coming in to cleanse Bill Baird by fire. He had a flaming torch, threw it against the wall. Clinic caught on fire. But it was 60, the headline said 60, what the heck is it? I had it here somewhere. 60 patients flee. And I got them out, and staff. We got them all out alive. But he got badly burned. And he spent a year and a half in a mental hospital under D.A. Dillon. Now, here's D.A. Dillon, weird guy. He was a district attorney of Suffolk County.
Yeah.
Guy who picketed me with 3,000 people. Now think of that. And the bishop. He was good, but he was a charismatic Catholic. He would jump into the air and speak in tongues. So you didn't, but you'd see his revolver. But the last day he was there, you know what he did? He said, Baird, I heard you've got a bomb in your clinic. I said, are you nuts? He said, well, we got a phone call. You didn't get a phone call. I make the phone calls for my clinic. Oh, well, here it is. Can you see this? Bishop leads.
At least 3,000.
Hold it up a minute.
Bishop.
Yeah.
Get it.
It's on the other side also.
Oh, you know, I'll show the other side. Think of this, 3,000 people. D.A. Dillon is jumping up in the air. He's speaking in tongues, babbling. You don't understand a word he's saying. He's got a gun on his side. And I sit back and I say, holy smokes. And I don't know if I can tell you this, but I'll tell you anyway. Because it's very sensitive to me. When I
We're all
talked to,
friends.
I was arrested with a 14-month baby. Well, another time when I got arrested, 14 with the child, the police contended that the morals with the child would be affected. But my children got calls that they would be put to death. They knew what school they went to, what time they go to school. They're little kids, 6 years old, 7 years old. They'll be put to death. So my first wife said, Bill, I can't live with you. And she took my children, moved them 400 miles away. 400 miles away. And she died last year, but the death threats were too much for her. And I understood that. And she left. I haven't seen them in, over 5 years now.
No,
But
I wouldn't.
it's the point is that they
We
never
already discussed
understood.
That I did a data for mold.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to show you this.
Forget, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot. I wanted to show you that. You know, this crazy judge who said in Alabama, fertilized eggs are people, that every fertilized egg becomes a person. It's a new word. This is a word you got to learn.
Hold it up.
Hold it up. It's called a hydatidiform mole. This is a fertilized egg. Eggs, as you know, go through meiosis and mitosis, cell growth rapidly. Goes too rapidly, it becomes a grape-like cluster called a mole. What you know what that is? That's cancer. So when you get cancer inside the uterus, if you don't remove the mole in the uterus, you're dead. You're going to die. So when you say to me a fertilized egg is a person, do you take that cancerous mole now and bury it as a person? Do you investigate it as if you killed a person? How about this? If you work at a computer, you know, computers give electronic rays. which can cause miscarriages. Do you charge a woman with murder? Do you say to a woman, you can't put your 3-year-old without a coat outside in the freezing cold, but you can freeze the embryo because it's a person. But later on, you can charge them with murder. I sit back and say, are you all freaking nuts? You don't even feed the babies who are here. I grew up in the slums. I had to go from garbage can to garbage can, take out newspapers and try to sell them. Didn't have food sometimes. And you're going to tell me you gave a damn about babies?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
Yeah, they're pro-birth.
Yeah. Any other questions or
Yeah.
challenge?
Yeah, a little bit of an anecdote, Bill, if I can. When shortly after you and I met back in the early 70s, I was doing some ads for your clinic, your abortion clinic in Boston. And there was an alternative left-wing newspaper called the Boston Phoenix. And
Yeah,
we
I know
sent them
it.
an ad. We sent them an ad and it said, abortion, Bill Baird can help. They rejected the ad because they wouldn't publish an ad with the word abortion in it.
God, you
That
remember
was
that?
what life was like back in the early 70s. You know, a lot of the folks listening
Forgot
to you
that,
now
yes.
don't remember a time when birth control was illegal. And they don't remember that time. I do. You know, I was
You're
dating at
brilliant.
that time.
You're much smarter than me. I forgot that story. What a great
Yeah.
story.
They wouldn't take the ad with the word abortion in it. In Boston, Massachusetts.
I mean, you could write a book or a movie. My wife wrote a book on my life. We'll have a little bit of trouble getting it printed because I think it's controversial that people are afraid of the women's movement because, you know, it is any way you can reach any woman to help them understand. If you're going to win a war, you need everybody. You need men and women working together. You cannot
Exactly.
turn to them and say, you men are our enemy. You'd go through living hell to find somebody who's devoted almost 60 years of his life for the rights of women, gone to jail 8 times. I'm so deep in debt. I don't have enough money sometimes to, well, my wife always tells me don't ask for money. I can't earn money because nobody pays me anymore because the women's movement speaks and they say, we don't want a man speaking on. So I get speaking dates, but for free, and I can't pay food bills
Bill,
that way.
Are there other questions? Maybe some-
Okay, all right. My wife is more of a kind of person, but I get hurt sometimes when they say, Bill, you showed the leadership, which I did, get 5 Supreme Courts, which I did. And then, by the way, you pay for everything. Oh, I should tell you this, when you win the case before the court, you're supposed to get the money back. Well, Planned Parenthood sued me, claiming that Roy Lucas wasn't good. They were given, for being found a secondary suit, they were given $140,000 for my case. You know what I was given? Now, $1. The judges in Massachusetts who hated me because I attacked the Catholic Church, not the religion, but attacked their politics. But they said to me that you couldn't get any money because you filed 2 days late, and therefore by filing 2 days late, you don't get the $150,000 that you laid out for your case. That was money I was saving for old age, like when you're 91.
$150,000 is equivalent to probably close to $1 million now.
Yeah. So I'm having a very hard time.
Bill,
Honey, I think I gotta see okay, all right. My wife is always my conscience, but I want people to see that there are people who give their heart and soul, and we're not bad people. But you call the women's movement, in the film. Oh,
Yeah.
no, I'm gonna tell you, the woman in the film was a professor,
be very thankful.
T. Grace Atkin. She wrote a book called The Amazing Amazon. And she wrote in the book, she was first president of NOW in 1966. I quit NOW because they would not support my brother, Bill Baird, because he was in jail. I said, oh, how nice. You know what she said in the movie? we don't support Baird because he's got such a big ego. He says all that he's done. Whoa, what happened to why you quit? No. You can say all you want, my ego. My ego says if I didn't believe in me, how could I be before all these courts? And I don't believe in me like an egotist, but rather I'm going to fight it no matter what you say. And I did, and I won. So take that.
Any other questions? Michael, you
Yeah,
want to?
yeah, we got something in chat from Rob Gorman that I'll read. Mr. Baird, if you were a young man today and hadn't started your campaign for reproductive rights, which issue would you be most involved in?
About the same issue I'm in.
Yeah.
Women's rights, reproductive freedom, and to understand that every child should be born loved and wanted. A lot of kids are not born loved and wanted.
Yeah.
And so that would, but I would do it differently. I would see to it that I would have set aside security.
Yeah.
And I always thought I could earn money. I still think although you may disagree, I still think I'm a good speaker, enough to get the story told.
Bill has spoken at colleges and universities, hundreds of colleges and universities throughout the United States and Canada for several years. I worked for his lecture agency, so I was a part of that effort. But he was one of the most popular speakers in the country.
Yeah, it's not surprising. I mean, tonight is a perfect example of it. I wanted to say one thing that struck me when I was reading the Wikipedia, and you've touched on it with Planned Parenthood. There's nothing to be gained with a court action of this kind.
Right.
And then they went on to say the only way to remove the limitations remaining in the law is through the legislative process. Now, when you just said about everyone working together, every possible means, I mean, the stupidity of that statement that, we're going to focus on legislation, forget about the courts. Well, the courts at that time were favorable. Today, we look at what the courts have done.
Yeah.
And it's just
The court.
yeah. Well, the courts. I mean, the lower courts, the Trump appointees have. It was a district court that that started the nonsense with the morning after pill.
It's always.
Yeah, and today someone on Facebook I saw said he was mad at Joe Biden because they didn't tax the rich. They didn't get the tax bill through, and he's going to vote for Robert Kennedy. So I said,
Wasted
perhaps
vote.
you haven't heard of Christian cinema on that question, and then asked him if he knew about birds not being real. I mean, if Trump is reelected, that's more Supreme Court picks that he gets. He got 3 from Hillary, and George Bush got 2 because people voted for Ralph Nader, and that's the thing we have to fight against. That kind of stupidity.
Well, one of the things that I'm hoping by doing this broadcast with you is the fact that if a guy had 91 for over 60 years now, been in the public eye, is still trying with all my mistakes I make and flaws and everything, I'm still a decent guy who's trying to say, believe in yourself, believe in your rights, believe in your freedom, and believe most of all that women are the only ones who can make this decision about their body, not us men. I often say that if men had one menstrual cramp, boy, we'd be innocent converts. Men are so great.
To say, Bill, it's an honor to have met you tonight. So thank you so much for all that you've done for women over the years. And I got an email before I came tonight from somebody that heard you at one of her assemblies at college many years ago. And she was sorry she couldn't be here. So could you tell me the name of the movie that you have coming out about you?
It's called Yours in Freedom, although my dear friend Steve,
Bill, tell her the title. of the movie.
oh, Yours in Freedom, Bill Baird, I'm sorry. But Steve said he wants to change it to
I told you so.
I told you so. There's a lot of things that we're seeing today. I had said 50 years ago. 50
You and
years
I
ago.
have been talking about the likelihood of Roe v. Wade being rejected for decades. I mean, we've been talking about it for a long time. We have written, I've written pieces for you on that and
Yes.
distributed them and just,
You're
you
brilliant.
know,
Yep.
you know, it's unfortunate that we think of our rights only when we lose them.
It's
Right.
true. Then it's too late.
Yeah.
Well, one way you get up, try to get me some speaking dates.
I
said-
did that.
I still think I got my marbles. Sometimes I'm a little slow on
You
names.
definitely do. Yeah,
The essence of what I know, I do know.
The IVF stuff is a real wedge for us. I mean, that forced them to backtrack in their own backyard. You know, what Alabama had to do, because from the religious point of view, it's a consistent action. You have to oppose, if you believe that there's a soul that goes into a fertilized egg from God, you have to oppose abortion in the case of rape. You have to oppose it in the case of, it's a
Right.
consistent, insane viewpoint.
right.
And IVF puts it right in the front where you could be prosecuted for actually, I think something like 1 out of 10 or something, you know, actually works. That most of the fertilized embryos don't have DNA, there are problems with them. You know, do you get prosecuted for that? And as some wags on internet put it, can I declare them on my tax return?
Right.
So,
Well, the amazing thing is we've got to recognize that we as people can be respectful, but not allow ourselves to succumb to other religious values. Like, suppose Jehovah's Witnesses said, we don't want you to have a blood transfusion. It's against our religion. Nobody
Right.
would allow it. Or Orthodox Jews said, hey, you can't eat ham and eggs because ham is against our religion. You wouldn't allow that. But we allow another religion to join now forces with the what's the group of evangelicals, for these groups to try to say fertilized eggs are people. God, you got to be stark raving nuts. I mean, I cannot think of it any other way. To call a fertilized egg a person is stark raving crazy. I mean, when you have scrambled eggs, do you have a scrambled chicken? I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy that we say this, and then we make women suffer. Think of this, that a woman has to take a douching bag and fill it with Lysol or bleach or turpentine, or let her husband stand her up against the wall and punch her repeatedly in the stomach to try to make her abort. I sit back and I say,
And
how
also all
criminal.
the unwanted children that are going to be born.
Yeah.
We're seeing more news stories about, you know, horrible things happening to children because they're being forced to have children.
Let me tell you a very quick thing. When I was very poor and I grew up in the slums, my mother didn't care for me so much because I was named William Baird Jr. and named after my father. And so once a month we would get a chicken as a treat. My mother would always give the chicken breast to my oldest brother and my other brother, but I was usually given the gizzard, which I hated, or the liver, which I hated. So what I did, one day we couldn't afford a refrigerator, we had an ice box. Remember those old wooden boxes with a big cube of ice on top? So I took an egg, took it out when my mother wasn't looking, and I put it, and we had a coal stove. I put it in the back of the stove. Why? I was going to hatch a chicken. And
Yeah.
this, I could have my own chicken and know what it's like to have a piece of chicken breast. My mother saw that. She said, "What are you doing?" I told her what I did. I said, "Mom, I wanted a piece of chicken." She took my hand, dump cuff, and she put it on top of the stove. I'll never forget this. 8 years old, and held it down so that my hand was burned. I never touched one of their eggs again. But my point is, when you're poor and you're not wanted, and you live through that, don't tell me how kind and gentle you are because you're defending a woman and her embryo. Okay, let women make that decision for herself. I've seen too many women want to take their life rather than go through a pregnancy. I mean, the courage. I had a woman who drove to me from Minnesota. I'll never forget this kid. She rented a Volkswagen, a small car, and made it a point to tell me that. I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, if you can't help me with the abortion at your clinic, I'm going to take it and drive it off the Triborough Bridge. I don't want to ruin my family's car, but I'll ruin this rented car. I'm not going to live with an unwanted pregnancy." I told you the 12-year-old kid that was raped by her father. After I had helped her, I got so many death threats that we helped a 12-year-old kid get the abortion. And I'm sitting back. See if you remember this. Remember the name, a neighbor of yours, where you live now, Nancy Klein. Nancy Klein lives in Delray Beach. I wish some of you would look her up and call her because she's very lonely. If you remember that story, in 1989, a mother came to me and said, "My daughter's in a car crash. She's 4 months pregnant. And they won't give her an abortion." Remember, that was my case.
I remember that. Yeah,
So
Rockville
she came
Center.
to me because nobody would help her. Planned Parenthood would not help her. Nobody would help her. So she came to me and said, and I've learned I have to check people out because sometimes people try to lie to me. So I drove to North Shore Hospital. She was there and she was like Snow White. I remember going over unconscious. I kissed her on the forehead. I said, "Sweetheart, we're going to get through this. You'll see." I helped her get through the abortion. What happened was, and this will shock you, patients came to me, had no money from the Right to Life group. They couldn't tell their parents they had sex. So I would tell them, "Look, you don't have money and I'll help you free, but help me. If you hear they're going to pick at me or they're going to do something to me, give me a warning so I can try to defend my clinic." "Oh, sure, we'll do that." One kid called me up. She says, "I heard that you got involved with helping her get the abortion. My mother's leading a group of several hundred people. We're going to blockade the hospital tomorrow, and we're not going to allow the abortion to happen." I immediately called the police. I called the hospital. I called everyone. And then I called a doctor friend of mine. We had the doctor come in at 1:00 in the morning. We did the abortion at 1:00. When they showed up at 7 a.m., I showed up. I said, "What are you doing there?" I said, "What are you doing there? We're going to block the abortion." "Too late, kiddo. The abortion's done." That's how I waited them. I faxed them. And that was the name of my.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We got two hands raised, Bill.
Yep.
Ellen
So
Baker.
grateful you let me talk to you this morning.
I don't know in what order, but Linda, you want to go first? Just unmute yourself.
I did.
Okay.
Oh God, Michael, when I got your email about the meeting tonight, I was at Boston University from 1966 to 1970.
Well, you were there at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, I graduated BU in 1970. We didn't have a commencement because of demonstrations related to the Vietnam War.
That's right.
The moratorium, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but I do want to, Mr. Baird, I do want to tell you that hearing your story is very important right now to me because during that time period, there was so much going on. It was reproductive rights, women's rights, it was civil rights, and Vietnam War.
Yeah.
So, I remember your name. And, when I saw your picture, when I saw you on Zoom tonight, I remember your face 50 years later, 50 years later. Yeah. But,
Well, it's so cute. Joke, joke, joke.
yeah. So
Your face has changed a little,
was-
Bill.
yeah. But there's so much going on back then. And so if I would be totally honest, I was probably focused most on civil rights issues.
Yep.
Than women's rights issues at that point in time. But I was curious when you talked about how Percy Sutton and Floyd McKissick were
Yeah.
supporting you.
Yep.
And that was like that was kind of like news to me, that what you just said. And I wondered, were they still with you near the end of whatever you
Oh,
had?
no, they were only with me. Floyd McKissick was only with me at the time I was jailed in New Jersey. I think he was speaking there at that time. But the fact that I was so outnumbered, 50 cops for one guy, with all I had on me that was deadly was foam, a diaphragm, and a condom, I think. But they arrested me and they jailed me.
Yeah.
I spent 20 days in jail.
Yeah. And to Michael's point about Supreme Court versus the lower courts, I think a lot of this stuff starts in the lower courts. But it also is, the whole legislative process is so important, because I think, when you think about Roe v. Wade, you begin to wonder, 50 years ago, Roe v. Wade was the law of the land, but it was never codified in the legislative process. And, was that a missed opportunity for us when we had Democratic controlled presidency and Congress? And I think we haven't been paying enough attention to the lower legislative process, as well as the lower court issues. And I think that's why, for example, in the state of Florida, the governor has been able to take over whatever he wants to do, because he has built the legislature in his image. And that's why we have all this stuff going on. So we need to pay better attention to what's going on, I think.
You gotta believe in yourself to fight them back. See, people know, but they're afraid to fight. And I sit back, who should be more afraid than me? I mean, I was put in a cage, beaten in a cage, abused in a cage, and I'm still willing at 91 to say, hold it, I'll give my last breath, because I believe that you and every woman have a right to live their own destiny, their own lives. And who the heck are we men to tell you what to do? Or women from the right wing.
Not even men versus women. It's like the religious aspect of this is, how dare you force your religion down my throat? You believe in one thing, that's fine. You don't have to have an abortion, but don't force your religion down my throat.
See if you remember this. I filed suit for the church to register as a foreign lobbyist, and people said to me, are you? I said, wait a second. The Vatican has the smallest government in the world, 103.4 acres, its own flag, its own coins. It's a foreign government. They lobby in the United States all the time. So if you lobby without registering, you have to register as a lobbyist. And you have to explain what you're doing with your money when you lobby. That's common sense. No one will join me with that. Nobody. And I sit back and prove me wrong. Boycott the business holdings. There's Monk's Bread out of Rochester, New York, owned by the church. There's a jam company in Massachusetts, owned by the church. Boycott some of these businesses. I tell people who are Catholic, when you go to your church, they give you a collection envelope, put on the envelope, no more money until my sisters are free. Boom. Don't get that.
Alan, you want to go one more question?
So I grew up in Western Connecticut on the border of New York, and my best friend's dad was an abortion provider. And so I unfortunately I didn't get to listen to your entire presentation, but I'm gonna definitely follow up. I thank you.
It'll be on our YouTube channel, Ellen. We'll post it in a day or so.
Okay.
Thank you. But I wanted to comment on the fact that I'm a school teacher. I teach high school. It's my 23rd year. And we have had 2 pregnant girls in the last year. And I have not seen a pregnant schoolgirl in more than a decade, probably 15 years. And we
Wow.
just had a senior have a baby. And we have I'm sorry, the senior didn't have her baby yet. The underclassman, it had her baby and is keeping it. And, it's just I feel like that's just gonna be the norm again. I mean, when I first saw her, I did a double take because it's been so long since I've seen a pregnant girl. And I just feel like my grandkids having less autonomy over their bodies is
Yep.
so hard to take. And I really appreciate your activism.
Well, thank you. We need each other. That's what I make mistakes. I do some good things. I do some bad things, but never purposely. And all I try to show people is that if you're one guy, and you believe in yourself enough to say that stick to your guns, don't let them, even though they're going to beat you up, which they have, throw you into a cage, which they have, abuse you in a cage, they have done that. But my spirit keeps saying, I'm going to keep on fighting as best I can. But what I can't fight is the financial part. I'm not very good at figuring out how, if I can't get paid for speaking, how do I live? And my wife doesn't like me to say that. And she's right. I shouldn't have to say it. But nobody ever says, hey, I've got some extra cash. I'll help you out. But it doesn't happen that way. And I shouldn't be saying I know it, but what do you do? Anyway, I can tell you this much. I'm honored. I love Steve. And I tell you, you're very lucky to have him as a leader because he's always been my friend for like 30 some odd years and brilliant. Harry could remember that story. I forgot all about. Great. And I treasure him and his wife, Sharon. Sharon is great. She's been a
Sharon,
good.
she moderated a debate that we had for our local city commission municipal races, which happens every year in March, and I call it March Madness. And every time I tried to moderate one of those debates, I got pilloried afterwards. And finally, after the last time it happened, Sharon very nicely sent me an email and said, I've moderated a lot of debates in Massachusetts for the League of Women Voters and other groups, and I'd be happy to moderate. And I took her up on the offer, and it was the best, the most successful debate that we've had.
That's nice. That's nice. Nice that you can say that.
Next, we're going to run Bill for governor.
Yeah. So,
Hey, listen,
okay.
I ran against, I ran in Massachusetts, remember? For office.
Yep.
I tried to get a
Yes, I do.
candidate to take a stand on birth control, and he would never talk to me. So I figured I was gonna run against you, not to win, of course, but just to try to get him to take a stand on birth control, which you never did or would. So I remember picking him with the middle seat I sprayed with gold paint. And I said, how much does the US Senate seat cost?
Well, thank you so much. This has been just great.
If you
And
can give me a copy of everyone.
we'll send you a link afterwards.
I'm not,
A channel where.
I don't know how to make a copy, but if somebody could make me a copy, I would like.
And we,
Dave says he can get it.
yeah,
Okay.
we'll get you a copy.
So much smarter than I am, boy.
Yeah.
And I mean that.
And to come full circle, we began with the announcement tonight that, and some people may have joined late and weren't aware of this, that Rabbi Barry Silver passed away today.
Sorry to hear that.
He was another fighter, a lot younger than you, Bill. He was 67, I think.
Yeah.
And Joan posted in the chat, the celebration of his life is this Sunday, March 24th, at the Rubin Memorial Chapel on Boynton Beach Boulevard, 7340 Boynton Beach Boulevard at 3 p.m. And he was a wonderful, he still is. I mean, he lives on in every that
Our
new.
spirit lives on, it really does, and our deeds live
Does.
on.
It does. So thank you again. I think I'm gonna close, the meeting. Oh, wait, what?
Ellen's got her hand up.
Okay.
We'll get
Oh,
to you.
Yeah, a mailing address for you, Bill?
Johnny,
Somebody-
can you help me with that?
What?
He wants a mailing address.
Oh, well, they can, have to go through Steve. We can't say where
Okay,
we live.
we can't say where we live because.
I'll get that to you, Michael.
All right, you know what? We can go
Yeah.
through Steve.
Isn't it wild because of.
Yeah, we'll go through Steve. That's fine. Fine. Okay.
Ellen's got her hand up.
What?
Ellen's got her hand up.
Ellen's got her hand up? I don't see it.
Yes, Ellen.
Ellen, go ahead. Last question.
I apologize if you've already announced this, but Felicia Goldstein's husband had a heart attack and died last night. She works for Lois Frankel.
Oh, Felicia?
Felicia's husband
Oh my
passed
God.
away. And the service is tomorrow.
Oh my. Jeez.
So she's had a rough time.
Sorry.
So keep her in your prayers, and the information on the service and Shiva is available.
Okay.
I think Sean sent all of that out today.
Oh, did he? Okay, I missed that. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen.
You're welcome.
Again, Bill is inspiring, really. Thank you.
It means a lot to me,
Yeah.
to say that, because sometimes you
Yeah.
got yourself. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Steve, for setting this up. Yeah,
My honor,
I
my
even
honor.
saying it,
Yeah.
And I gotta thank my beloved wife, because without her, I'd be nothing.
yeah. Right. Okay,
Joni
right.
and I have been going back and forth on this.
David, start the countdown.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Goodbye, everyone.